Greetings everyone and welcome to the BlastCast. I am Jarvis. With me always is my science officer from Vulcan, Lightning Dragon.
Why Vulcan?
Because the new ship is called the Vulcan.
Ah, yes, of course. Live long and prosper.
Exactly. Now let's start by talking about something I normally don't talk about, the Bug Smashers. This week we got a little bit of a sneak preview at the 600i, and I was excited for that because I have a 600i Explorer variant, and one of the things they showed towards the end of it, which really I was happy to see, is where the landing gear come out in that thing, because all the stills they showed, you never got to see the landing gear. It looks like, you know that Lightning on the bottom where they had that, as you like to put the cell phone holster? It comes directly out of there. It's like
the
panels.
Cell phone holster?
Yeah, you described this ship like you said. It looked like
yeah.
You said it looked like a flip phone holster. The whole ship. Yeah. So where the holster is at the bottom, it's actually part of that. So it comes directly out of there. They're completely hidden. It's pretty cool.
Like for a pager or something.
Exactly. All right. This week on Around the Verse, we had some Connie Phoenix updates. And tell you what, that little lady has gotten quite wide, and I think she's pretty. I know that you really didn't play Jump to Lightspeed, Lightning, because that was kind of before your time, but...
Phrasing, and also I didn't play because when I actually went and bought Star Wars Galaxies,
yeah,
the CD key were like, try it for free for 30 days. It was rubbed off on the cover. So I didn't even get to try the game. So I was like, wait, so I have to give you my credit card right now? Even though I went and bought the game, I was incredibly salty at that point.
All right. Well, there was they had basically a copy of Lando's ship, the Lady Luck, as a social ship. Couldn't do combat, couldn't be attacked, and this ship is really having that kind of aesthetic. It's kind of the party boat, and I really like it. It's one of those ships that I wish I had, but I could never get it as LTI. Even when they released it on special holidays or special sales, there's never been a way for me to cross chassis from an LTI frame into that, so I haven't gotten it. But I have the 600i, so that should be
Boo-hoo. I'm sorry, you have enough ships as it is.
Oh, indeed. We got some nice Terrapin updates. And one of the things they talked about is how, because the way the engines rotate, it can do sustained VTOL, and that gets into the VTOL or thruster changes that we're going to be getting into just a little bit later in the broadcast.
You know the stupidest thing about the Terrapin, because they've obviously haven't learned their lesson, is the front engines thrust into the rear engines, which means it's thrusting off itself, and that actually is not how thrust works at all. So those front thrusters wouldn't work.
I've noticed something a lot of times when they show it, the engines are angled outwards slightly, like at 30 degrees, and there's two engines actually in the back. There's slits. So maybe when it's flying normally, the front doesn't really contribute very much. It's just the two engines in the main body and then the two engines off to the side.
I've seen that when they were showing the landing and the concept art, and
yeah,
but it looked like, I mean,
it does.
From what they've
shown. I won't argue that point. Yeah.
Well, no. What it does is it looks like when it's in VTOL mode they go out, but when it's in flight mode they're straight. Because they had one of them where it was just flying through like an asteroid field or whatever, and they looked like they were perfectly in line with the ship. They weren't out by 15 degrees or something. Yeah. So it could be that was an older picture. Maybe it's just artist driven.
Well, the same thing in the video too. I saw the same thing as well. But that's one of those ships that, because of the way the engines, the way they move, its reverse thrust should be pretty strong as well. This is one of those kind of ideal ships. I mean, with the exception, in the sense of what you're talking about, I would agree that the front engines would need to be pushed out more so they can clear the back engines. And it's one of those ships that. If that was done, it'd be a pretty solid ship for being space-worthy, just the way it would be laid out. I mean, the mast, the center of it, everything like that, it's really kind of a very tight ship. When you look at just everything about it, it just says this is kind of a unibody. And the only thing that moves on it for the most part is just the engines. So it's going to be interesting to see how that dynamic comes into play with the VTOL after they do the thruster heat. So we'll see. But yeah, it's looking pretty. It breaks into three big pieces apparently, and everything else, it explodes.
It doesn't really need like you could have it where they just gimbal, right? I mean, like 10 to 15 degrees would be all you need, but you'd have it where they wouldn't be 100% of their power because some of it's being pushed towards the center of the ship. So if they were like, let's say 90% efficiency in the front, 100 in the back, and then if you flipped, obviously if you have gimbaling nozzles for your thrust, it'd be the exact same thing. So in reality, it wouldn't be effective at all, except for if you were doing like up or down, because there's no need to gimbal the thrusters. So you could actually have better up down strafing in that regard.
Yeah, we'll have to see how they do it because.
Oh, I'm sure they're not going to do anything that we're talking about because they don't think like spaceships. They just don't.
No, I tend to agree. They tend to think like FPS developers.
Yeah. I mean, it looks great. Don't get me wrong. But, I mean, even just the barest effort of realism, it's all I'm asking for.
And guess how many ships there are now, including variants, Lightning?
Well, actually, I have a number in front of me, so I don't have to guess.
Oh, okay.
It'd be 114.
Oh, okay. Well, that's a pretty good guess. 114 ships. Man, I tell you what, I never thought Star Citizen would hit that point where we would have that many ships to choose from. I remember early days of backing, 10 ships. You were thinking, wow, that's pretty good selection. Now it's just ridiculous.
When I was backing, I had, it was like 4 ships that I was considering. And
yeah.
Part of that was a price range thing, but it's like, do I want these ones or these ones? And that's
do I want the Avenger? Do I want the 300 series, or do I want like a Freelancer or a Connie? And that was.
I think it was the Cutlass. I think
the Cutlass was there. Yeah, so maybe 5 or 6. But the point is that
before the Mustang. Like 10. Yeah.
Well, Mustang came in later. It wasn't even that. We just had the Auroras.
Yeah, it was Aurora, Hornet, 300 series, and I think the Cutlass as well. I think those are the big ones, or at least
definitely
as far
nothing
as
near what we got now. I mean, now it's just off the chain. All right, so let's get into the Vulcan.
Live long and prosper again.
So it's their first concept of 2018. It's a multi-professional jack-of-all-trades starter ship, and it covers refueling, repairing, and rearming. Now, I have to give them credit for this. Now, they have often released variants of the same ship that does a similar job. Instead of making us have 3 versions of the Vulcan, they said, okay, well, the Vulcan can do these 3 things. And I think it's a much better way to go. And frankly, it's nice to see something that can refuel on a smaller scale, repair on a smaller scale, and of course do something that no other ship can do in deep space, rearm. Now, I don't know if that's going to be missiles. I have a feeling it's mostly going to be like, a ballistic ammunition. Like
it sounded like to me that they were talking about like small arms.
Yeah.
Because I think they talked about an armory in the back or something.
Yeah. So I mean, what you mean, like just handheld weapons?
Yeah, like SMGs and things like that, assault rifles. That's what it sounded like to me.
I got the impression it was for like the ballistic Gatling guns on ships.
I don't know. I mean,
well, we'll have to see.
We could both be right for all I know.
True. But the odd thing is that it's an Aegis ship, but when you look at it, to me, it either looks like one of 2 things. Either looks like Anvil, or it
looks
has
more Anvil,
or it has shades of with the front of it looking like a small Starfarer. So it has shades also of Misk. So I'm like, but when I look at it, I don't think Aegis. So
it very much feels like Anvil, because Anvil is the quote unquote boxy.
Yeah. It's definitely odd. The fact some people were posting on the forums going, "Well, not another Aegis ship." It's like, it's just the name, man. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. Aegis has a lot of ships.
Well, it's a 3-person ship with 4 drones and 2 drone stations. So each person controls 2 drones. The drones can be set to different tasks, and I guess those people can run independently. So that adds a lot of variations of what would be done at the same time. You'd be refueling this guy, repairing this guy, or rearming that guy. And one of the things that was kind of weird with the design was that, the extra fuel tank they have is kind of like really exposed in the bottom. I think you were talking of.
That was one of the things I was going to point out. I was like, would you like to hear my 2 complaints with the ship?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I'll do the second one first, because you've already brought it up. Is the external drop tank. Why? We haven't had, like, the only time external drop tanks are used, even in World War II, right, was you use them to get to your location. If you were bomber escorting, or if you just needed to cross the English Channel or whatever, you like would take off with them, but you drop them as soon as you went into combat because it's a liability. And in the case with the Vulcan here, it's like part of the hull. So if your shields go down and they're shooting at your fuel tank, the entire ship will just blow up. And especially if it's the main fuel tank. So that's problem number one. Why can't it have a armored fuel tank? That's dumb. And
unless it is armored, and that's just the bump we're seeing.
It really doesn't look like it to me, because to me, armored, it would have like a like a flat plate over top of it, and then slopes ones on the side. So it's like, yes, there's where the big fuel tank is. So
and I wonder if that large fuel tank could be drawn on. So basically, you turn that vessel into a long-range support craft for just basically repairs and rearming, and screw the refueling. So
I don't see why not.
Yeah, I mean, if you could draw off your own tank, that would be something that would really change its functionality.
It could make it a extremely long-range support vehicle.
Yeah, exactly. What was your second point?
The second one is kind of, I mean, I know we have talked about it personally. I don't know if we've talked about it on the show. I'm pretty sure we have. Is this new ship makes old ships obsolete. And the reason I'm saying that is the Starfarer. The Starfarer, I mean, I don't know what everybody else's thoughts are, but I'm pretty sure most of us had the idea of it's like modern day refueler. So it has like this big arm that comes out, and you would, dock it and you refuel that way. But the Vulcan refuels with drones, which I imagine are a mostly, if not completely, physicless object, so they can interact easier with the ships. Yeah. And the Starfarer does not have those drones. So I know I was kind of making fun of it and making a joke about it, where like the Starfarer probably needs a little bit of redesign as far as the internal space goes, because it's a bit confusing. But ignoring that, it's still going to need a redesign, because if they're going to be refueling with drones, the Starfarer needs a drone bay.
Well, actually, it may not need a drone bay. It may actually just need drones. And how they could do that, that catwalk that goes out the back?
Yeah. They could just,
basically, they could have drones hanging on the inside between the catwalk and the tanks. Like basically, they latch on there, they fill up with fuel, they disconnect, and then the operator flies them out. Or preferably from inside, but I mean, I guess
definitely
you do on the
from inside. But
there's space.
It could be a maintenance catwalk. So you have to go out there and visually inspect the drones. You could still do that. And I'm thinking Subnautica here. You pull out your little repair tool and just weld on them to fix them.
Exactly. So I mean, there's still space because it's a plenty big ship. So do I see modifications maybe coming to the Starfarer? I would say yes, because you also have those stations in the cockpit in the Starfarer. Not just, the captains, the two people in the front. You also have these stations to the left and the right behind the captain. And there's no reason that those can't run drones.
Yeah.
I mean, give them something to do.
Yeah, so, I mean, those are my only two real complaints about it. The external drop tank is an actual complaint. I don't like that idea. Yeah. But the drone thing is more of an observation.
No, yeah, I agree. There's always changes to the game that makes them go back and rework ships that they had in the past. So, I would expect more changes to come to that ship because it was their first large ship.
Yeah, and it was a mechanic that wasn't designed initially in the game.
First shipitis.
Exactly. I'm stumbling over my words here.
Of course, it has a living accommodation, small cargo hold, and rear access tailgate and an elevator. And you know what it also has?
Potatoes?
It has landed in my hangar. That's right. I'm an idiot. That's right. 35 ships and 10 ground vehicles. Someone stop me, please.
I will drive over there and beat you within an inch of your life.
It fills a role. You know I only buy ships if they fill a role.
But technically you already have that role. You have a repair ship and a refueling ship.
Tyler wanted it, so I saved him from himself.
So you're going to gift it to him is what you're saying?
No. He can fly it. He can't have it. He can fly it. It's got LTI. He can wreck it, and I'll fly something else.
So your actual job, what you're going to be doing in the PU, is you're not going to be doing mining. You're not going to be doing salvaging. You're a ship broker.
come to Jarvis's used ship lot. It's Enterprise Rental Center for spaceships.
Yeah, only blah 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 UEC per hour.
Actually, I found my calling.
Oh man, and that's probably going to be in the game too. I mean, I joke about it, but
who knows?
Sure
maybe it'd be a contract. All right, and calling all devs this week. Just had a few questions. I'll kind of rip them out if you want to watch a 20-minute video. Persistence. When is that going to be in the game for logging out in ships? That was already put into the game, but because of a bug, it didn't go to live. Should be fixed in 3.1. Mechanics for multiple character slots. There's no plans for it in 2018. The details are not locked down. I keep asking about this one. I see so many repeat questions. Are scanning mechanics beyond salvage in the works? When? Call swing. They're getting the baseline scanning created. Normal, salvage, and mining scanning. They're both based on the idea of location and analysis. Those two different differentiations. No time yet for release. Any news about the Abandoned Merchantman? Nothing on 2018. Stop asking about the Abandoned Merchantman. It'll happen.
It's too big. It's too big.
Well, it'll happen when it'll happen. They'll let us know. I guarantee you that's going to be the first thing they do when they have any information because, yeah, Abandoned Merchantman.
Well, I mean, to go slightly off tangent for about 1 minute here, is I think their goal for ships is Squadron 42. If it's going to be in Squadron 42,
exactly.
It is way higher on the list.
Exactly.
That's just what it's going to be.
And that's why I think you'll see the Vulcan faster than you will some other ships too, because I think they want to get that in Squadron.
Oh, definitely.
Because they want to have a small ship come out and rearm and refuel you and repair you. I guarantee you that one's going to be high on priority. All right, and why do I have to go to Reddit, Facebook, and Twitter to find information that should be on Spectrum? Because they said they want to be adaptive in their communications and contact, interact with people in different crowds in different ways to kind of expand the groups of people that they interact with. That's perfectly reasonable.
They should still all be on the forums, though, regardless.
Yeah, I mean, if they post something there, they should definitely double it up on Spectrum as the hub of everything, but there's nothing wrong with also saying, let's take this and also put it on Reddit, or take this and then put it over here. I mean, I have no problems with that, but I also agree that Spectrum should be, whatever's out there should also be doubled back on Spectrum, so those who do use it don't have to look outside somewhere else if they don't want to. All right, so getting into the Mavs.
Uh-oh.
The dev said that they're looking at making kind of radical changes to the current thruster system. Hopefully some of those changes involve not having thrusters that are almost as strong as a Saturn V rocket.
Never. we must have Saturn V rockets strapped onto the sides of our ships.
Oh, yeah. But they're looking at implementing overheating. And as the thrusters overheat, they become less reliable, start to have errors. Basically, your maneuverability goes down. And this happens through continuous firing. So when you're in an atmosphere and you're using it as a VTOL, it's not something you can sustain for very long. If you have a ship with aerodynamic properties, you're better off flying in a normal mains kind of focused flight. And if you're a larger ship, you better land pretty quickly. But for the most part, it could have the potential to change the way things fly for the better or potentially for the worse. And the reason I say that is that one of the things, if they're going to be doing this, and I have no problems with the application of heat, but space needs to be taken into consideration as well. Now, for example, when space, it's a lot harder to cool off the thrusters than it is in an atmosphere.
And hopefully everybody who's watching our channel should already know this, but the reason is because oxygen
yeah, or any sort of gas that's making contact with.
Yeah.
And that allows for transference of heat. In space, you really don't have that.
Now the heat goes directly into the ship.
Now landing, if you were, say, over a 1G orbital body that didn't have an atmosphere, that would be extremely harsh as compared to a 1G orbital body with an atmosphere. So those kind of factors have to come in, but hopefully with this heat system, circle strafing starts to go away. Basically, or a lot of the jankier, high-speed, constant use of MAVs that we've had in the game that really just kind of make ships fly like they have mains in all directions. The only things that are going to be able to sustain that level of VTOL permanently are ships with mains that actually rotate. For example, as we talked about earlier, the Terrapin. Or perhaps the Cutlass to a degree. It only has those two, but obviously the Mavs have flipped the front, so that's going to be kind of a blend. Like when you watch the commercial we had for the Freelancer.
Reclaimer too, right?
Right. Oh, absolutely the Reclaimer. That's got 4 gigantic engines that can pivot down. And in fact, they're part of the landing gear. The landing gear come right out of them, so that whole thing. So, and of course, Idris, that lands with engines pointed down. Retaliator.
Yeah, Retaliator.
So these are the ships that should be able to sustain a very steady and stable VTOL, which is great too, especially like Retaliator. Like if you're in the atmosphere, you're going to be attacking a base with your torpedoes from long range. Having a stable firing platform is essential. So,
another thing, if we want to talk about the Retaliator, which I love to talk about, is the Retaliator could have technically 2 flight modes at this part, and it could be based on your speed. So you don't have to actually toggle it. So if you are going above X speed, because they're thrusters, they're just giant thrusters is what they are. Your thrusters would be down, and they'd be assisting with your thrust, with your wings and body, which is providing lift. And if you slow down, those thrusters would pull up. Mm-hmm. And now because the thrusters are pulling up, you're going full-on VTOL. You have no aerodynamics property because you're going too slow, and you would also have additional drag because your thrusters are pointing straight up. So in that regard, you could become a more stable firing platform, but you'd be an easier target. So if you were actually doing a bombing run on a static target, you'd probably want to be flying incredibly fast to, 1, make yourself a harder to hit target, and 2, it'd be easier to get in and out.
Right, and I would like to see if they have this mechanic in there. For example, the Terrapin, let's say it's flying straight, and as it comes into the planet, it's in an atmosphere now, or in a gravitational body, whatever. And as it tries to maintain a level flight, it's not really an aerodynamic vessel. So to do that, the engines start pitching automatically, like slowly start shifting down, and it starts losing forward speed because it's only so much it can do. And eventually, it would have to shift into a full VTOL mode and fly very much like a helicopter. Because we had talked about how that the game needs to treat VTOL and atmosphere very much the way that it's done in the real world. Just because when they showed initially planets, it was very much kind of like a no-clip camera experience. And the video where I showed multiple times now, basically you can park your ship on its nose and just it just sits there. This whole thing of the overpowered Mavs has caused a lot of issues in the game, and hopefully this is the first step to fixing that once and for all.
Yeah, and I'm actually excited to try this out, though I do think, as we've already just discussed, is certain ships should not have, I don't know if they'd have any penalty, but very, very small penalty to VTOL in atmosphere. And we have already pointed those ships out, where you'd have other ships that have a very, very large penalty to VTOL because they're not designed for it at all. But if you transition this into space, it should be the most punishing in space, and then atmosphere it's dialed down for the ships that are not designed for that, and it's dialed even more down that the ships are okay. I mean, even if it was the Car-to-Wall, is that the right one?
Yeah.
Yeah, even a ship like the Car-to-Wall, it's using its mains as basically engines or thrusters.
Yeah, with the Car-to-Wall, how when it lands, it folds up and kind of the wings are pointed. I thought, wouldn't it be interesting when it enters atmosphere, the wings have to fold back, and now it's flying more flat because because the Mavs are pointed slightly down, or pointed down now. And this way, instead of being the wings out and spread, where the Mavs push out left and right, when it goes in the atmosphere, it folds up, and then the Mavs push down. I thought that would just be interesting, and it would be this variation to flying modes, not just the wings fold in because you're landing, but the wings fold in because now you need to have lift.
Yeah, just by adding a heat mechanic to the thrusters, it quite vastly changes the flight styles, the way you fly and what you want to fly.
But they can't. This won't work though if they don't iterate on the one thing they refuse to iterate on, which is gunnery. Because we're going to be sitting back. Let's say this restricts thrusters, and people won't be able to do the rapid vector changes, which is the current rapid vector changes are inhibiting turrets They're basically making the game need to have ESP, which is a mechanic you see in first-person shooters for getting on target, high rotation rates. All that stuff comes down. We're going to be sitting on a 2.6 issue again, where people are going to go, I can't dodge anything, because you shouldn't be dodging. You should be evading. But the game isn't based on evasion. I know that some people say, "What's the difference?" Dodging is this quick juking left and right. Think of it like bunny hopping and going back and forth.
Think of it like Dark Souls rolling.
Yeah, and evasion is complex maneuvers that put you out in the line of fire or into a firing solution. So there's a difference between dodging and evading. So right now the game is very focused on dodging, and very little, if I would say almost none at all.
If you can dodge a wrench, you can dodge a hornet.
So yeah. Hopefully this is just the first part, but as I said, if they don't want to touch gunnery still and be obstinate about that, they're going to have the same issues. I'm just going to call it now. If it does reduce MAVs and they don't touch gunnery, it's going to be a real poop show.
I imagine you'll see a huge increase of missile kills if well,
missiles will be they'll be way more effective if you can't just
shoot to the side.
Mm-hmm. That's a really good point. I hadn't considered that.
Yeah, that was the first thing I thought of. It was kind of like, oh, well, if they're going to stay back and not maneuver as much, I'd just be like, missiles. Yeah. So then, there you go. We're calling it. It's the age of the stealth Hornet, the Hornet Ghost, when they introduced this thruster thing, because stealth armor,
Saber, Hornet Ghost.
Yeah, Saber.
Also, my Raven. And the Raven's just disgusting because it's stealth plus EMP, so that's just good.
Broken, and it's the worst kind of broken. It's the pay to win kind of broken.
Do you know what I found? It's really fun to do with the Saber Raven.
I don't care because I hate that ship. I want it removed from the game.
You wait till someone takes off from a planet, and then you fly by and pop your EMP and let gravity do the work.
Oh, jeez, of course.
No shots fired. It's You haven't done anything wrong. You just your ship just backfired and something fell out of the sky.
Yeah, your ship malfunctioned and just did an EMP burst.
Exactly. It just happens sometimes. Static electricity discharge is what it was. All right. As we close this down, we'll let you know Lightning and I are looking at possibly doing a Stellaris playthrough as an extra cast when the expansion comes out. I think you said it comes out the 22nd of this month.
22nd, Thursday.
Yeah. So looking forward to seeing what they're doing with that. That's one of our favorite 4X games, I think, of all time.
Yeah, the other one I'd be considering is Empyrean. We did play a little bit, and we recorded some of it, but we ended up not doing anything with that. But I believe it's 8.0, the Alpha 8, is adding what the patch notes say is a repair to the number blueprint. And the only thing I can think of with that is you will be able to repair ships back to a blueprint state if they have a blueprint, which would mean if you take your fighter into combat and you get it all shot to hell, but you can make it back, you'd be able to repair it back to 100% strength. And if that's what's going on, I mean, all they need is shields now.
Oh, yeah. That just makes it one step away from being, like, pretty much the game that makes me stop playing Space Engineers, like, permanently.
Yeah, Space Engineers is a good game, but Empyrean is doing a lot of very, very nice changes. The way they built the thing, so like planets are a separate thing, space is a separate thing, a moon, and because they're instancing things, well, some people are like, oh, well, that's dumb because then you have to like go to that zone, but that's also really good for your computer and especially for a server. One of the biggest problems that Space Engineers has is the world is so big. The longer the world goes on, the more it chugs down. What?
It's like a container system that the CIG wants to implement. That's why we're having, it helps the performance if you break things in the regions or sections that you don't get the data from until you don't have to see what's behind the door until you open the door.
Right. So there's a lot of good things coming for that, and that'd be another thing. So if either of those games are something you want to see us play, please do leave a comment, because if you don't, we don't know what you want. We will, of course, continue to do whatever we feel like, because... Exactly.
They said the channel's motto is, I do what I want.
Yeah. But sometimes it's nice to have that kind of feedback.
That's true. All right, guys, well, that's about everything for this week's BlastCast. I know I didn't tell you about the other shows because I haven't decided what I'm doing yet, so I don't want to lay that out in the line. So we will catch you on the next one, and live long and prosper. It's my turn to say it.
Bye.